So recently we've discussed my Netflix viewing habits, particularly how much I enjoyed Bandersnatch and want more of that kind of programming. And if you recall, at the end of that, I did say there's certain things I want less of. And that's what we're discussing today. Now, I'm not going to be ripping it apart and being overly harsh. I don't like to do that. I just want to point out that there is a flaw in it, which, if that flaw was removed, maybe I'd accept it more. There's something I read about how someone described it, which I will use later on in this video, which would have been more appealing and would have made me less annoyed at it. I was going to call it a travesty of entertainment, but I think it's a misjudged piece of entertainment. And that is Haunted, a 6-part series where ostensibly a group of people get into a room and one of them tells a tale to the others, who are either their relatives or friends, about something that's happened to them that's been creepy or spooky or like alien abduction, that kind of stuff. Normally happening when they were quite young, or at least starting. A lot of it does carry on into later life. And there are a lot of good elements to this series. The setup of them being in a room is quite interesting. I like the idea that it's very contained. It's not just an interview piece. It's someone talking to their friends and family, and getting something off their chest. So there's a very positive angle to that, a very sort of therapeutic, helpful angle, if this is indeed something that's tormented them through their life. And that's a big if. The dramatizations that they use are creepy. The dramatizations are one of the better bits of the entire sort of, in each episode. Some of the dramatizations are so gripping. The second episode, Slaughterhouse, the guy's weird possessed fit is terrifying. Slightly humorous. It really, staggers that line. But, there's a lot in these episodes that do get you. A lot of the imagery in these reenactments, at least. But where it falls down is something that comes up right at the end of the title sequence. The following is a true story. Now, arguably, if you believe something, to you, it is true. If these people really believe these things happened to them, it is true to them. But I only got 2 episodes in before I started raising the BS flag. Because the second episode is Slaughterhouse, which tells of a tale in the 70s of basically an abusive household, and I will get to that in a second, whereby the father, at least at the start, sounds like he's the orchestrator of some kind of horrific stuff involving sort of travellers who may be without family or just wandering around or whatever, strays as he called them. But no, his mother's involved as well, and sometimes the kids would like creep downstairs and catch it and be like, oh no, we should go away. So we have seemingly a prolific serial killer who hasn't appeared in any, stories, newspaper stories in the area. This is upstate New York. There would have been something. Apparently also, when the old guy died, the nephew inherited the house and threw away, effectively, evidence. He was also told never to go digging in certain parts of the property. So he potentially knows where bodies are buried and he hasn't told authorities. This guy's definitely on the hook, if not everybody involved in this. And I did actually do a search, like a lot of people apparently, after watching it. And there's a whole Reddit thread, which I will link below, which just breaks it down. There are people who've contacted Netflix. One of them was told, oh no, nothing is scripted. And I will get back to that in a second. And then another one was told, no, it's completely fake, apparently by Netflix representatives. But this idea that it's a true story, there'd be some kind of history. Yes, okay, names and locations may be changed, but there's nothing that really quite fits this bill. Also, the way that these people are talking is sometimes very stilted, sometimes very acted. Now, of course, I did say, they said nothing is scripted. But improv isn't scripted. You can have prompts. This is how the Blair Witch Project was done, for argument's sake, which is a very, very logical comparison when you think of it. That's something that was portrayed as true, something that was real. But there wasn't a script. They were given prompts and ideas, and occasionally something would come along that would be completely unexpected. Just obviously so they could get real reactions. So if these guys are just given basic prompts, and some of them may be given like a line, which isn't fully scripted, they're still not lying if they say it's not scripted. What they're lying about is it's a true story. The nail in the coffin for me was actually the first episode, the tale of Jason Hawkins, who's been tormented for years by this woman in white. She's followed him around through most of his life. He thought he was rid of her, and then miraculously 2 days before filming she appeared again, so he knows his number's up. Ooh, cliffhanger, spooky, convenient. If you do a bit of digging on Mr. Hawkins, you find that he's worked in the horror industry for quite a while. He's definitely very interested in the genre. There was an interview that was done in Portland. Now I forgot to check which Portland it was, but if it's Portland, Oregon, that's not far away from California, where he says that, you know, these whole things happened. Obviously it's Portland, Maine, it's the other side of the country, so, but I want to assume that it's Portland, Oregon, just for the fact that it's close to California, so it could be believable that he could have lived there and moved up. Maybe I'm giving too much credit, I don't know. But, you know, in this interview, he never mentions, like, he got into horror because he's been spooked by someone when he was younger. He seems to have had a decent life up until this point. But in this tale, in the first episode, The Woman in White of Haunted, he came from nothing, and his life wasn't great, and he's been tormented by this ghostly woman. Some of his expletives that he uses, which I won't repeat here because I do like to keep this family friendly, it begins with an F, are sort of stilted and forced. Like I said before with some of the other pieces, you know, the way they're speaking, the way they're addressing what they're getting across sometimes, it sounds like, again, like I say, not scripted, but certainly prompted. Now, one of these parts on the Reddit thread said, this could be pitched as an adult Are You Afraid of the Dark? So you know it's not real. It's people telling campfire stories, but in a more adult, refined setting, so around on chairs and such. And that would be better. I'd love it for that, because there is nothing to say that any of this is real. None of these people seem to have verifiable stories in a massive way. Someone on the Reddit thread said they knew Hayden from the last episode, but that's one person on one tale. And they may have known Hayden, and Hayden may have told them this story. You know, we've got to look at it entirely sceptically, I think, this series. But like I say, if this was pitched as Are You Afraid of the Dark for adults, it would be so much better. I wouldn't have the issues I have with it. I enjoyed the stories for what they were. I enjoyed the reenactment parts. I think, you know, we could have something like this as a new idea. Don't call it Haunted Season 2, just call it something that completely removes it, but keep that idea, but make people aware that this isn't real. I mean, it maybe base it slightly in reality. But that's one of the last things I do want to say. Assuming, if we're going to give benefit of the doubt here right at the end, that some of these tales are sort of rooted in truth. That these people do believe it because something like that happened. Most of these stories have come from a place of childhood abuse. And that's not a fun topic, of course, you know, I'm not making light of it here. Kids who've been abused will often make up stories to deal with what's happened to them, to not come to terms with it, but to perhaps compartmentalise it, to protect themselves, so they can just try and live a semblance of a normal life. And if that's what's happened here, a lot of these kids, you know, stories could be that. You know, it runs the gamut from neglect through to more active forms of abuse. But if that's what's happened to these kids here, then they're not in the wrong. These people are not in the wrong. Netflix are for exploiting that. But I want to leave on one thought that says that that's probably not the case. In a lot of these contacts with Netflix, you know, they've dodged the point, of course, but one in particular stood out to me. They were dancing around the point of whether it was true, but they asked a very simple question. Were you scared by it? From what the person claims on Reddit, that was their main focus of the call from the Netflix person. They wanted to know if the viewer was scared by it. That's their incentive here. They want people to be scared, which makes me think it's fiction. And I really hope it is. because the alternative is just unconscionable. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Haunted. It should be reformatted as Are You Afraid of the Dark for Adults, made clear that it's not real, and I will accept it. But that's all I've got to say for it. So I hope you'll join me next time, where we'll cover something that will end probably a lot happier. I do apologise there. But I hope you'll join me then. And until then, as always, thanks for watching and take care.